I'm too young and good looking for any eligibility for Stadler and Waldorf, I would suggest.
Sounds
Pat.
like you're going to have to start again, Pat.
No, it's all right. Good
Oh,
evening,
no,
everybody.
that's
It's a good start as any. Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of You Cannot Be Serious on lirmedia.tv. And the usual format is here tonight. And our email, if you want to contact us, is info@lirmedia.tv. And all our programs will be up on our YouTube channel and the usual social media platforms. Now, tonight we have a new member of our panel tonight. Carol Ashley, good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
Brian Hinchy, good evening to you.
Good evening, viewers, listeners, fans, and acquaintances.
And good evening, Tony Brown. How are you?
Oh, very well. Good evening to all my fans out there.
And good evening, Chris Price.
Good evening to the no fans that I have.
Good evening, Stephen Collins. Up there in
Good
space
evening,
somewhere in Limerick.
Good evening, everyone.
I like the space station
Yeah, you're
behind them.
spaced out tonight, Collins. Like I said,
We normally send around some little topics to start off the ball rolling, but sometimes we get diverted. But we don't mind that if we have a loose agenda. So the first question we're asking ourselves tonight, in the light of some of the new laws that were passed by our national parliament there last week, and even as up to last night, are we slowly turning into a police state? And what I mean by that, with the new laws and the continuous curbing of our freedoms. I know we discussed a freedom before, but just to concentrate here on the law part of it. And is it time to really make an appraisal of this and throw our opinions on it? Stephen, what do you think?
I don't think that we're going towards a police state, but what I do think is that the gulf that exists between those who have and those who have not is getting wider. The justice system itself seems to be geared towards those who have money. I mean, we'll say look at Swingate at that time. Look at all the bankers. What happened to them? Nothing, you know. But and if you don't pay your television license, then you go to jail. You know, so I think it's going like that. As for our curbs, I don't think the government have an idea what they're doing anymore. At least when Fine Gael were in, they had one section deciding what to do. Now everybody is getting their spoke in, and it's just going from bad to worse. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing at all.
And Carol, and welcome, great to have you on board. Are we slowly turning into a police state? And what we mean by that is, by the advent of all these laws are passing, is it really an infringement on our freedom to move around?
If you've seen the publicly stated Agenda 21 of the New World Order, they are not even attempting to hide what David Icke describes as the totalitarian tiptoe. And this is a series of implemented measures which are gradually introduced. You know yourself the analogy of the frog in the pot,
Yep.
where it's been cooked slowly. The idea is to meet the agenda: one world government, one world currency, one world army. And if you look at the way it's been implemented, it's more of a totalitarian technocracy. So what you might call the cabal or the Illuminati, or these various other terms which are used, they're in Silicon Valley. And the likes of Google, Facebook, and YouTube are facilitating this agenda. And that's my understanding, Pat.
And Brian, we're asking the question, and we'll tease out those later on again. Have we too many laws and a curb on our right to move around with the advent of the new laws that were passed in our Dáil recently?
The thing we have to remember that the people that enforce the law are just like you and me. They're lads in a job that are bringing wages home to their families every week. So they're doing what they're told. They're doing what they're told by people who we, as a democratic
republic elected to represent us.
A supposed democratic republic.
Yes. Now we didn't elect them all. We just you elected one of them or two of them.
Yeah.
But that's what we do, and the majority rules. As for laws, laws are made. Laws are made, in my opinion. If they're not fair, they're made to be broken. And the only thing about it is we're afraid of our shit to break them because of the consequences afterwards.
And Chris, what do you think? I know we asked this in a different format, but it's more specific minded now. What do you think of the question?
Well, okay, the question is you asked is, are we turning into a police state? We're not turning into a police state because a police state, in my view, is where our liberties are so restricted that we wouldn't be able to function as a society. Now, the present exception is that when there's a pandemic, certain restrictions have been made not by the police but by the state in advice with what they call scientific evidence from medical experts. Okay, now the problem is this: the laws that have been made recently in this jurisdiction is not really one of a police state, but it's of a spiteful state. And what I mean by that is this, is that due to certain mistakes of government over the past year, that basically, in a way to row back from those mistakes, they are now putting down the most punitive measures. And now it is coming, and I'll give you the example about the COVID payment, which is what people are looking at the moment. The COVID payment, right, and the furlough scheme in Ireland was introduced in haste without much in-depth thinking because they were petrified of many people going unemployed and business just shutting down. My opinion is this, that the pandemic response by most governments is not to save lives. It is basically to save the hospitals from being overrun. And that is where the key is. The problem is that the health services of many countries in the West have been so underfunded that then when you hear a government say we're here to support the health service or the NHS or whatever, these are the same people that 6 months earlier refused to give nurses and doctors a 1% pay rise. Yet they rewarded themselves with a 15% pay rise. So that's the fact of the reality. And now I think one of the biggest shams ever that I saw in these islands was the clap on a Thursday night for the NHS. I thought that was absolutely the most patronizing thing that I had ever seen in the last 10 years. They don't care about the NHS in the UK because they're trying to sell the damn thing, right? And they want rid of it because it's costing them a fortune. So most of the laws that we have in this country are basically reactionary laws. And as I said about the COVID payment was there to be basically as a short-term measure, hopefully for 2 or 3 months, because they thought we'll be all over by June. We're now heading into August, and now we're fearful of a second spike. The problem is that when you're on a COVID payment, how can they turn around and say, well, you're now available to look for work? Anybody who is basically on this payment is being supported because their businesses have closed down. So they're not available to work anywhere else because their businesses could be open at a moment's notice. Now they're basically saying, well, now you're on this payment, we're not letting you go abroad. You can't go have a holiday. You can only go to the green list, right? It's because if we can't go, there's no fucking way you're going. And that's what the problem is here. They do not like seeing people having a better lifestyle than what they're used to. They don't like seeing people being able to enjoy themselves. I mean, you take Mark Sharry the other day, right? The Sligo TD, Fianna Fáil, Ray McSharry's brother, right? Now, this was one of the most spiteful things he ever said, right, in politics, and he hasn't apologized. He said that civil servants are availing of the COVID to watch box sets on TV and sit at home do nothing.
Yeah.
That's
Instead of
where
being
we're.
at work, do nothing.
Well, we don't know if they do nothing, Brian. But the point of the
See how
matter is,
you see how he's laughing, do you?
yeah. But the point of the matter is, right? Why is he saying it now and not say it maybe 5-10 years ago? If he had a problem with civil servants, where he comes out now and says it. And here's the thing: as far as I'm aware, most civil servants are working anyway and not getting COVID payments. They're actually working. They may be working remotely, but they are working, and they're not getting COVID
That comes
payments.
down to the question I wanted to ask you about
Yes.
the health system. Is the health system underfunded or badly managed?
Both.
Yeah.
Which more so?
More badly managed.
I think in this country, it is well funded,
and
but
badly managed.
severely badly managed.
Okay.
Now,
I think
Tony
that,
Brown-
in my opinion, that sums it up.
Now, Tony, you were driving home there. You weren't stopped by any means, were you? Do you wear a mask out in public, Tony?
No.
Can't you see he wears it all the time, for God's
Huh?
sake?
Talking about what you call it. Oh, we talk about the hospitals first of all, about them being badly managed. I've had 2 visits lately to recently, I should say, to the regional outside.
Yeah.
With the new fancy names they're giving them now, university hospitals.
Yeah.
Who's the brain box came up with that? Just leave them alone as regional hospitals. But and to see, I guarantee anybody go out to the regional tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow because they're all off. The worst day to get sick is a Friday.
Yeah.
The worst day of the week to get sick, especially after 4 o'clock.
Yeah, you're
From the
dead.
hope to Monday morning. But unfortunately,
It'll be Tuesday morning.
what?
It's bank
Oh
holiday.
yes, you're Monday
Tuesday
off now,
morning.
Tony.
What?
We're giving you a day off Monday, Tony.
Yeah, well, so you really hammered all together. But the best, I know, because there were more tunnels I was out there on Fridays. But having said that, if you go out to the regional on any weekday, I guarantee you'll meet at least 6, if not 10 people walking around with folders in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be going from point A to point B and going back. You'll see the same person packing again, going back in another direction. The whole system is crazy. There's too many working there anyway in the offices because they run off their feet. I saw a lot of nurses now working fairly hard, running around and running from this and running from that. Now, they were working, but it's the what you call it side of it I object to, the administration side, especially nowadays with so many computers. I mean, all they have to do is give what do they want, your date of birth they want first, and then they'll find you. But they're going around with folders in their hand. It's unreal. But as regards the police state, yeah, the one I dreaded at the time was the criminal justice bill that Michael Noonan, I remember, he was Minister for Justice at the time, signed into law. And that was really against, we'll call them, the troubles. And they were afraid of people being involved on the radio and getting exposure and that. And what was it? It was you couldn't be brought before. Well, that's kind of felt by the wayside a bit now. You know, that bill. But like that, all these old bills are really brought in of necessity. When you hear of a new bill being, it's something else that has happened that they didn't cop on to, in other words. But the laws are there if they were enacted. We don't need any more bills. If the laws are there, but they're not properly administered and active, who cares? You know, nobody cares. The biggest people with power are the guards. The guards can basically do what they like, and you haven't a hope. They can arrest you like America. The only thing they don't do is put you into a yellow suit and put handcuffs on you. But they can take. I went up last Monday, as I told you before, Pat. I'm a frequent visitor to the court. I love going into the court and just stand at the back. And to hear the codology that goes on with yes, Your Honour, no, Your Honour, I did, Your Honour, I will, Your Honour. It's unreal. The dread of life of the justice to do the guards do. But to hear, God, what I consider lies being told, it's unreal. And the money being raised is all for the state, don't forget.
And a lot of money.
The judge above, what's her name, Marion O'Leary, she raised in about an hour, she raised about 4,500 or 5,000, but it's not been paid anyway, because the best thing to do is, and I had the case on me last week again, of a fellow that made an appointment to go down to Henry Street, to be taken up to the jail. He was brought in for 3 hours, €700 he was fined, sat for 3 hours, and he was told to go home now, it's all over. I mean, that happened only last week. He told me himself.
You're listening to learnmedia.tv. You're Canopy Series. Carol, just getting back to your point about you made about the three companies. I'm interested in that because I've read a bit about it myself. And how do you think this is coming about, and who is facilitating this idea?
Can I just come in on the other gentleman's comments first?
Right.
Yeah.
Be nice now. Be nice.
What we saw in the UK was the deliberate dismantling of the NHS, which was created by the welfare state system. In the early 1900s, the Labour Party was created with this notion that when you're able-bodied and you can work, you pay into a pot. And should you be aged, infirm, or sick, the pot covers you back, right? The birth of the welfare state. This is a fairly simple and straightforward concept. The likes of Keir Hardie, Ramsay MacDonald pushed this through.
Yeah.
Right. I suppose from the 80s onwards, the Tories deliberately dismantled the NHS by implementing all these layers of middle management, which weren't necessary. The people with the folders that your gentleman is referring to there, that are going around, and they're all on salaries and cars and all the rest of it, and the resources are being taken away from the actual people doing the work. Now, this is not incompetence. It's put out in the media as incompetence, as mismanagement, but it's actually a very deliberate policy to bring down any, shall we say, institution which is for the benefit of the people. Part of this Agenda 21, when you're looking at the global scale and the wide scale picture, is the erosion of community values and the erosion of family values and the erosion of pockets of nationalism and state identity. What they want is standardization and a kind of analogous or an anomalous glob of people without any individualism and completely loyal and obedient to the state. So to create this, they need to erode certain things. And if you look at the issue with the evictions, when you look at the way the government has handled the legislation, whether it's NAMA, whether it's private properties, they've been literally going in and turfing farmers out of properties that have been land in their family for a long, long time, and thoroughly illegal. I think there was a case in Roscommon where the people got wind of what was going on and fucked them out of it, right? Because the banks are in cahoots with the. Not everyone in government is corrupt, but the vast majority are serving the agenda of these masters. And so in Ireland, I don't know to what extent the HSE has been also deliberately mismanaged, but like you say, there's these university hospitals, they're getting renamed, the rebranding costs millions, and that's money that's being taken away from things like linen for the beds, the cleaners' wages, and this is fucking wrong. There's no two ways about it, right? You don't need to be a genius to work out what's right and what's wrong.
You're right.
Common, decent, ordinary people are constantly under attack from these gone-bean corrupt politicians, whether it's Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Labour, and I don't have any time for any of them in this country, because the illusion of democracy, this idea of reds, greens, blues, yellows, is a charade for anyone that's willing to buy into the notion that there actually exists a parliamentary democracy and not a dictatorship being run by politicians sympathetic to their masters, in the case of Varadkar and Martin, the Bilderbergers, and the technocrats, the very, very rich people at the top that own the likes of Google, Facebook, and YouTube. They will help the policymakers in whatever way, shape, or means they need to perpetrate this agenda. And the police, like you say, there's career guards out there. I lived next to one for years. Decent enough bloke, just wants food on the table for his kids and him and his wife to have a peaceful life, you know. But, you know, you don't need me to remind you that Nazi Germany got away with what it did because people were just doing their job, following orders.
True.
And this is what we're seeing
after
again.
We're after giving the health job to a man who was spouting before he joined Fianna Fáil about how the health service was being misran, mismanaged, and all that. Let's see what he can do with it.
He won't be able. He won't do anything.
But let's see, Stephen.
The rest of them, he'll do nothing.
Let's see him fall on his face.
No, you cannot be serious in the program on media.tv and tell all your friends about us. And all our programs go up on YouTube. And if you want to make a comment on this or any show, info@media.tv. Our second question, because we don't want to dwell too long on anything, but we can come back at the end before we finish if people have a burning contribution to make to one of the items.
Burning desire.
Burning desire. That's the word. Thank you, Brian. Does it make a difference to us, Ian and Ireland, who is President of the United States? Does it make a difference? Really, really, truly make a difference to us in the Republic of Ireland? Chris, what about you? Does it make any difference?
It doesn't make any. Well, look, it doesn't make any difference. But I have to be honest with you, this right. And I remember when in a previous position, I was talking to 2 American pilots in Shannon Airport, and we're talking about politics. And they were saying that, geez, we apologize for who we elected. I says, hang on a minute. I says, who you elect is your business. We have enough trouble electing politicians. Right? I mean, when I hear people in this country, especially, right, coming on in 2016 and saying, "Look at what the America have done, those Muppets." Have they not seen the news or read the papers lately about what we've been doing for the last 20, 30 years? At least 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
We have
100 years, Chris.
Fine, Brian. Okay, but the point I'm making is we have absolutely no right to criticize any country on who they elect. Now, the question is, does it make a difference? Technically, it doesn't, but it probably does because of what their foreign policy will bring. Now, the current regime in the United States want to paraphrase Colin T. Wilkinson's speech or song from Les Miserables, bring them home. He wants to bring those jobs home, and hell or high water, he will do his best. And the profits too. So hit that policy that they want to implement, and going by what I saw last night in the news, there may not be an election in the States at the end of this year. So we are going to have a constitutional world crisis that we haven't seen in such a long time. And you kind of wonder, was the book The Handmaid's Tale now coming into, reality? And you just wonder what's going to happen, because it shouldn't make a difference, but I think it does. But as I said at the beginning, when I see people on social media having a right old laugh on how America or other countries elect their officials, I think sometimes they should have a look at home first.
Carol, the question is, does it make any difference who America elects to Ireland, really, the President of America? Does it have any, I suppose, economic benefit or downturn? That's the question we're asking.
Yeah, of course it does, Pat. This is a bit of a no-brainer, and with respect to the gentleman that spoke before me, again, taking a wider view picture, Trump is, since 2016, going after the paedophiles and the child traffickers and the organ harvesting rings.
That's true.
But the likes of the wall in Mexico, the amount of children being smuggled across the border for paedophiles and for organ harvesting between Mexico and the United States was absolutely shocking. I looked at a documentary on this, and yet in the media it's being portrayed as Trump's a bit of a whack job, he's a bit of a wild card, and this wall is an ego trip for him. This is the, say, cabal-owned mainstream media narrative that Trump is a nut job. he's actually a good man. And if I were you, each and every single one of you this evening, pray for Trump, because he's up against some very evil, very, very nasty people. And when the truth comes up with regards to Epstein, this Ghislaine Maxwell, whether she was his boss or whether he was her boss, and the very, very nasty stuff that went on, but this is very unsavory stuff. I wouldn't be watching this unless you're prepared to be shocked as to some of the crimes that are perpetrated against children. And let's say Trump succeeds and is re-elected in November, as we hope he will, and justice is done and the truth emerges as to what's been going on, we can move forward into a world where there isn't this kind of nasty malaise or this undercurrent of evil and hatred and greed. I mean, I want my children to grow up in a world where, and call me idealistic and call me naive, but if there are enough good people doing good things and good deeds, and Trump is attempting to surround himself with those people in his administration, then we can succeed in rooting out these corrupt, evil people that are in control of the mainstream media, have been in control of the banks and the economic system, and every single person that's, shall we say, in the loop or in tune with when the truth emerges, after we've been, get over the shock of what's been happening. When you hear about what's going on and what's happening, it's very difficult to swallow. It's very difficult to absorb. I've had 4 children, and every single one of them I've cradled in my arms. I've fed them at 4 o'clock in the morning, changed their nappies, and loved them. So my default assumption is that other human beings and men are like that. They care for children. But unfortunately, there's an element of people on this planet that have either genetically had their empathy removed, or they're just so fucking evil that they would torture, abuse, and rape children, and then kill them, and then sell their organs for harvesting around the world. And if you haven't woken up to this yet, it's coming. And it's very unsavory, and it's very unpalatable. So, of course, what happens with Trump and America is going to have a knock-on effect, not just in the UK, but in Ireland as well, and globally, especially with China and all these other countries that are being run by, as I say, what we might call the cabal.
And Stephen, we're asking the question, you're listening to learmedia.tv, you cannot be serious. And Stephen, we're asking the question, does it make a difference to us here in Ireland who was president of the United States?
I think it does, depending on the policies that that president implements. Okay, because economically we do rely a good bit on America for jobs. We always have. And it's also a good place for us to immigrate when times are extremely bad. And we have fantastic links with America. So if a president decides, oh, well, I'm going to bring all the jobs back, then economically, yes, it could be very, very bad for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is. And Brian, do you think it makes a difference as well? Who was elected?
Well, first of all, myself and Carol are singing exactly from the same hymn sheet. I'd be completely on his side. But come back to the question itself.
Yeah.
There is 80 million Irish Americans. 80 million people that can become president of the United States. And we have to admit they're a necessary evil in this world. They're doing a job. They're keeping the North Koreans and the Russians and the Chinese a little bit at bay. But the fact that you have an Irish, you're going to have Irish presidents, people that have Irish connections, and that can only be a good thing for Ireland. And when we had the Kennedys, you had the Reagans, these are people that are very sympathetic towards us. And remember this now, we're one of the most educated people on this planet, the Irish people. And we're only 150 years old as far as education was concerned, because of the
Are you
fact
sure,
that
Brian? The country's full of Man United and Liverpool supporters.
The Liverpool supporters you get away with, manure supporters.
Carol, take that.
Hold on now. Tony, we'll bring Tony in on this. Tony,
Tony,
difference.
see that fella? He's on the right of you. Hit him a box there for me.
Tony, you're an old fogey like myself. You've seen a lot of American presidents in your day come and go. I remember when John F. Kennedy came to Cork in his motorcade in 1963, and I was a young lad, but I remember it.
I thought that was Dallas.
No, I was on the grassy and all. But Tony, we've seen a lot of presidents come and go, and some of them have been extremely, I suppose, aware of the Republic of Ireland, of our country. Others couldn't even find it in the map, and you don't have to go back too far for that. What do you think? Does it make a difference to us here in Ireland?
No, I don't think so. No.
No?
The most of them didn't even know what Ireland was. Clinton hadn't a clue it, sir.
No.
He was told to get the Irish vote is what they want when they come over here. Reagan, I'd say. So Reagan didn't know what they had the week ahead. You know? And he was sent over here by a crowd who told him his cousins came from Ballyporeen. Yeah, it made no difference. They only come over here because first of all, if they can make a what you call it, if they had Eisenhower could make a connection with Ireland, they would have had. You know.
Yeah.
There's most of them. So I told you only last night about Obama. That's only a load of rubbish. His cousins coming from where it is up the country. No, that didn't exist at all, and that's only all made up. And they can make up anything. I mean, you can only go back up to the 1820s in genealogy, and to go back further than that, I tell you, want to be a mathematician. You can make it up,
wrong, you know.
That's all. It's all rubbish. But they don't. It make no difference to us. Johnson had no connection with Ireland. Neither is Trump. The only connection Trump has is the hotel he bought that he got at a good price down in West Clare.
No, we Clare people are very happy with the injection.
Yeah, we might be looking for him to sponsor this.
The place was down before the investment came in. And
a man, a retired vet in Kilkee told me, who died last year, told me that he said he never thought he'd see the day when there'd be 300 people employed back in West Clare.
Yeah.
The Trump is employed back there,
Yes.
You know. You have to
Was it true, gents, that Ronald Reagan thought that the B-52s were vitamins for the troops?
Oh, yeah. The man said his wife was reading the stars, wasn't she, every day of the week? She's telling him, he was looking at the stars. Nah, makes no difference to us. Who gets in? Joe Biden already has made his Irish roots as well in Clare.
Yeah, Joe Biden is very Irish.
Yeah. Joe.
That can.
And he will do great things for this country.
Who?
He will make Ireland great again.
Well, we'll see. I wouldn't actually hold my breath now for that, you know. Nah,
Anyway,
makes no difference.
You Can't Be Serious is the program on lirmedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us, and all our shows are up on our YouTube channel, info@lirmedia.tv, for any comments or suggestions for the show. Now, we're asking a question today in the media. Who's your favourite talk show host today that you go around looking at?
Brian Hinchy.
Huh?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Jerry Hannon. Jerry Hannon is your favourite.
Before we get carried away, Chris, what about you? Have you any favourite today? You would say, I must catch up on what so-and-so has to say on radio or TV. No? Yes?
Absolutely not, Pat.
Exactly.
To be honest with you, if you look at anywhere in RTE, if you want to listen to an interview you might as well go to the RTE canteen. While Graham Norton is entertaining, he gets his guests half pissed before they go on air. I don't like Jonathan Ross. I just don't like him. I actually do think the TV is bland. I think I may have said it before. The chat show is dying out because they do not give. There's two problems. One is that the characters are not around anymore, and the second thing is that they don't give their guests a chance to speak. I was watching the news the other day where on television the presenter asked a question, and within 10 seconds, we've run out of time. And I go, well, why ask the fucking question then? I mean, they know the schedule. Someone's talking in the ear. Probably someone is saying, you've got one more question to ask. And then they go, right, cut them off now. We've got to go to an ad break. So the reason why the chat show is dying is because the schedules are so tight with advertising now that you've got 10, 15 minutes. That's it. And I mean, all these shows are doing now is plugging books.
Yeah.
That's all they do. Plug books. Bring them on. Plug a book. Plug a movie. That's it. And a lot of these guests are coached to an inch of their life on what not to say.
Stephen, have you found the coaching helpful, or do you think you need some more? But do you watch any of the modern ones on a regular basis, or do you catch up?
No, I can't stand anyone. Absolute television. Good luck. Won't watch a talk show on television because it's absolute and total rubbish.
Yeah.
On radio, I actually like Niall Boylan.
Right.
For some strange reason.
But he has a go. He has a go.
He has to go. At least, you know, he's not, how would I say it? He's not politically correct. He'll have a go. I mean, he might be opinionated. That's fair enough. That's his own opinion. But he'll have a go and he will make people uncomfortable. And I like that. As for I've two more as well. Dirk Decline, obviously, and of course, Brian Hinchy.
Oh, Dirk Decline and Brian Hinchy.
Brian Hinchy,
I forgot about them.
No, I find
You told me I haven't got any fans.
I find
off.
Brian extremely good. No,
So, Stephen, when are you posting the checks out?
I'll let that go.
Oh, because I'm the one that's posting the checks out.
I do find Brian very entertaining altogether. I really do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you very much.
And Brian, I
Right.
know, before we come to you, Brian, you'll have to shrink down your head a small bit, just filling the whole screen.
Oh, I tell you, yeah. I think I'm going to be cocooning in my bedroom for the next 6 months because I will never get out that fucking door.
Do you look at any?
You're cocooning.
Do you look at any of the regular ones that are on TV or radio, or listen to them, Brian? No.
Well, I only listen to the radio when I'm in the car, and we don't get much on that. But we have two. We have Virgin and we have RTE. Miriam O'Callaghan and Dave McCulloch are like two robots. Everything comes out of them like robots. Now, give Claire Byrne her due. She has a much better presence than that. Sarah McInerney, when she was with Virgin or TV3 at the time, I had great time for her. I thought she was brilliant. But she's after going over to RTE now and she's towing the line.
I think she's made a hand of it.
We have two. We have Virgin and we have RTE. Virgin are private. RTE are being paid by your license and my license, and they do what they're told. But they all do what they're told.
And Tony, what about you? Does anyone shake your tree now on television or radio, apart from ourselves here on the top chat show?
Apart from Brian Hinchy.
Yeah.
When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do, I put on Sarah McInerney at 10 o'clock. And I listen to her or Pat Kenny till 12 o'clock. I switch from one, if they're discussing something I'm not interested in, I'll switch over to Kenny. Kenny, they have good guests on now and well researched. And Sarah McInerney, I think, is very good. She's one of the best females that's on now.
She's too good looking for the radio.
Who?
Sarah McInerney.
Sarah McInerney?
Yeah.
Shouldn't be my cup of tea. Her father's from Kilkee. But anyway, but I like her now, do Sarah McInerney in the mornings. And if she's on something that I'm not interested in, I'll switch over to Pat Kenny and vice versa till 12 o'clock. Then I listen to Ronan Collins till 1 o'clock. I might listen to the news or I might watch the television between 1 and 2. That's my whole day. And then the Weakest Link is on at 2 o'clock. I think she's fabulous, I do. And Robinson.
Yeah.
She's exactly like myself. She
I
says
could
things
see how
are-
you would be interested in the Weakest Link, all right.
Oh, she's fabulous. She is.
And Robinson is fantastic.
I watch her until 3 o'clock. Then I go back then to Lyric from 3 to 4. And then at 4 o'clock I have a choice. I switch from RTE to what's his name? The other fellow. No, Matt Cagney now is after taking over from Yates.
He is, yeah.
He's doing that slot. Or the other fella, Matt. I listen to him until 6:30 or 7 o'clock. The best fella is on at night is David Sukar. He interviewed Mary Lou MacDonald last night now. And he's on World, BBC World. I listen to him every night.
David Sukar has done some cracking interviews.
He's very good. He's on from 12:30 to 1:00 every night. I watch him, and he's on 7 nights of the week. And he'd Mary Lou last night.
Tony. That's an old one he did with Mary Lou MacDonald.
Yeah, but she's very good. She's now with him, She was well able to handle him.
He's a very good politician.
And he asked a few questions now about the funeral, and she was well able to answer him back, But I watch him. As regards talk shows, some I like, some I don't, I watch a lot of television at night now late, I would. But some of the talk shows are getting my wick.
When do you get time to watch the television with all the radio listening to?
The radio mainly. And at night then I might watch a bit of television sometimes. I'd watch him now from 12:30 to 1. That's if there isn't a good documentary on BBC 4. Usually there is at night late.
And Cal, what about you? Do you tune into Ben Shapiro or Michael Knowles or Joe Rogan or any of those?
Helen Shapiro?
Absolutely not. I stopped watching television about 10 years ago. And I stopped buying mainstream media newspapers over 10 years ago, maybe longer, 15, 20. In fact, at least 20
join
years
the Green Party by any chance, did you?
Since I bought a newspaper. I do read a lot, and I'm a writer. I'm currently writing my 5th book. I think television is a huge waste of time, although I did used to like...
I know we'll digress. Tell the lads what was the first book you wrote.
The first book, The Fox and the Scorpion Meets Cold Turkey, I was interviewed...
I'll repeat that for the lads. The Fox and the Scorpion Meets Cold Turkey.
Yeah, I was interviewed by...
Is that the fox I heard there?
That turkey's going to get a hiding now.
Is it the cold turkey?
The dog's barking at a wasp, sorry.
We'll have to do a book club.
Is that going to be a 6th book, Carl, is it?
Is it all right if I finish, Pat?
It is, yeah, it is, of course.
Where are you going away?
You'll get no change here,
Time to go, lads. Time to go.
Go on, Carol. So the first book you wrote...
It's only your first time on now, Carol. Don't be getting too ahead of yourself now.
He's plugging the book. He's plugging the book already.
It sounds like the Late Show, lads.
Come on, give it a check.
Carol, I want to tease this out, if you don't mind. That was about your journey. A journey, wasn't it?
It was, and what I was going to mention was I was interviewed on Clare FM by a guy called Gavin, who I think was hosting a morning show.
Gavin Grace.
Yeah, that and so that was a positive experience. I'd have time for him.
He's a good guy.
Why, because he plugged your book, is it?
I tend not to listen to Clare FM much, but I was invited in, and it was a nice opportunity to speak a little bit about the issues in the book and my own personal journey, which I'm sure your guests and panel there can avail of if they're passing Eason's in Shannon.
I'm keeping all my money for a pint of Guinness when I'm allowed to pick a drink.
My bathroom doesn't have a plug as big as that. That's ridiculous.
So, to answer the question...
By the way, what's the book about?
And how much is it?
Go on, Carol. Tell Brian...
All those answers can be found at www.carljashley.com.
It's about a turkey and a fox
and a scorpion
and a scorpion
and a wasp. But
we don't have scorpions in this country.
No, there's no more turkeys now, Carol. They're all in the doll. But you don't watch television, you said, anymore, so you wouldn't be into these talk show hosts, right?
There was one called QI with Stephen Fry that I used to like watching.
All right.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that was a good program. And on the UK, on the TV, there was a guy called James Whale who went from having a radio.
Oh, very good.
A television show. Do you remember James Whale?
Oh,
I do. Used to have a few nudie women on it. Nice. Very good.
I didn't see that part.
Oh, I did. He did a few good women on it.
So the only part of it you saw.
Very good.
And then online, there would be. I came across a Scottish guy in America, who was interviewing these hot women and these comedy actors. and he had like a harmonica on his desk. Ferguson, I think he was called. Did you ever come across him?
No,
Yeah.
No, never.
no.
No, never.
He was quite good.
I've been to Ben Shapiro and that other chap. I forget his name now. He's a psychologist or a behavioral psychologist. Jordan Peterson. I listened to him the odd time, and as I said, Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles. They just interest me, not all the time, but they have interesting topics. Now, before we conclude tonight, lads,
To the Rosary, is it?
a man passed away. Yeah, the sorrowful mysteries we'll be on to tonight, Tony, for you. A man passed away, Alan Parker. Now, Alan Parker was an icon of cinema, as anyone who looks at some of his body of work, like Midnight Express, Angel Heart, Mississippi Burning, The Commitments, Bugsy Malone, Fame, Evita, Angela's Ashes. Tony, do you remember when that was being shot?
I do. I met him when he was
Huh?
a nice man.
Yeah.
And seemed a nice fella. But like that, they did Angela's Ashes, which I don't know whether he made money from it or not. I wouldn't
20
say
years
no.
ago.
What?
20 years ago.
Oh, it was. Have to believe, isn't it?
It is.
Really is. How quickly
What was
time.
was Angela's Ashes only 20 years ago?
1999, the film was shot here in Limerick.
My
Yeah.
God, I would have
Hard
said
to
40
believe.
years ago.
And but like that, he was well respected in the film world. I think he won a few awards as well, Academy
You get
Awards.
to see Emily Watson. She was in it.
Oh, Emily Watson.
Emily
Yeah,
Watson.
she was, yeah.
Robert
Where
Carlyle.
was this fella from?
England.
Well, us.
How we were talking about Irish people here.
Alan Parker, the director, passed away. He was 78. His famous films were discussing Brian. Now, did you see Brian, Mississippi Burning?
That was the one with Tom Hanks had
No,
AIDS, is it?
No.
Oh,
That was your man,
Gene Hackman
Hackman.
and Willem Dafoe.
the civil rights story of
Oh, I've seen it, but it's so long ago now. My old Alzheimer's is killing me.
Francis
I
McDormand.
wouldn't remember it.
Very good film, though.
Do you remember, Carol? Are you into films at all? Do you remember any of those films?
Not
Like
a big cinema goer, and with what I've learned about Hollywood and the satanic paedophiles behind the Hollywood.
Oh, here we go again. We're back to Donald Trump
I'm
and
thoroughly-
pedophiles and
thoroughly
doing things to children and
anti-Hollywood. When you find out about what's going on with Disney and Pixar and what they're
Yeah.
putting in the movies for the children,
the next
you'd
big
be rightly sickened.
Well,
you
I
saw
can-
that 2.5 hour documentary, didn't you? Very good.
Yeah, that film.
About the cabal.
There's a film being made as we speak, or in the can. I shouldn't even say that word. By Harvey Weinstein. Now, Stephen, do you remember any of those films by Alan Parker? Do you remember Midnight Express? Do you?
Mississippi Burning, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the standout film for me. It was absolutely a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe were brilliant,
Oh, they were.
especially Gene Hackman.
And Frances McDormand, I thought, stole the show.
Excellent.
She was
Oh, absolutely a fantastic story.
the hairdresser, yeah. And
The last film I saw, Pat, in the pictures, like, what do they call it now? The cinema, or the pictures when I was a child.
Gone with the Wind, I'd say.
The last picture I saw was The Exorcist. When was that? About 1976, is it?
And the Exorcist ran away when he saw him.
That was
Yeah.
the last picture. That was the last picture I saw. Was The
And-
Exorcist.
and
Your mother is sucking cocks in hell. You know.
Yeah. The Green Stew. The Green
fabulous
Stew.
fabulous language. And Chris, do you remember The Commitments?
Do you know what? Actually, Mississippi Burning, as Stephen says, is probably I never really liked The Commitment, to be honest with you. I just
Rubbish, yeah.
wasn't my type of film. While Mississippi Burning was the type of film that you. Well, do you know what? I was just going to say that Gene Hackman was an actor that I would listen to reading the telephone directory.
Yeah, he was very good.
I mean, he is just one of those actors that you could just basically sit
I wouldn't
there.
say
and
he ever
watch
did
all
a
day.
bad movie.
No. Well, see, the good thing about those type of actors is that they carry a lot of credibility, and they had the ability when to accept a good script and when to turn the bad script down.
Yeah.
You know, and
Was
I
he
just
the guy that was in
Success
Enemy of the
brings
State
that.
with Will Smith?
What you
He
say?
was-
Oh, yeah.
Was he the guy that played the ex-Secret Service guy intelligence with Will Smith in Enemy of the States?
He was.
Yeah.
Was, yeah.
Was.
And
Yeah,
he was
that
in
Gene Hackman, yeah.
the main film that I remember
Yeah,
Gene
that was
Hackman.
a fabulous film, yeah.
The main
I,
film.
uh,
The main
The
film I
Connection
remember.
one.
The French Connection.
Yeah.
The French
Popeye
Connection.
Probably the one
Popeye
he's
Doyle.
most famous for.
That was his
And
famous one. That
Superman.
was
Don't
his
forget Superman.
Well, obviously,
Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
yeah, and obviously Alan Parker directed Evita with Madonna in it, or should I say Madonna? And
That's not nice, though. That's not a
Yeah,
nice thing to
isn't-
say about
isn't-
Madonna.
Yeah.
Antonio, could you ever envisage Antonio Banderas singing? Of course, Jimmy Nail, the famous Jimmy Nail, was in it as well. Remember Jimmy
Oh,
Nail?
Jimmy
Yeah.
Nail.
Why, man?
Nice
Oh,
in the
Vida's
back.
and Pet, is it?
Yeah,
Crocodile
Crocodile
shoes.
shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful song, lovely
Yeah.
song. That was our little run around on Alan Parker, lads. We've come
Parker's good.
to the end of this edition of the show, and it's been a blast and fantastic to have you, Carol. Hope to see you again on it. And
Yeah, have a good evening, gentlemen, and God bless.
and so from Carol Ashley, from Brian Hinchy, from Tony Brown, Chris and Stephen and Stephen Collins. Until we meet again, good evening and goodbye.
Look,
John, how are you?
Hello, John.